Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Economancer, and today we're going to explore the fascinating connection between Orthodox theology, cybernetics, economics, and public policy. So we're going to be focusing on the concept of communal ontology in Orthodox Christianity and how this is linked to the voluntary actions in a free market from the prospect of capitalism. So we'll also discuss how the thoughts of economists like Minsky, Hayek, and Adam Smith relate to the Orthodox notion of the self and the workings of the free markets. So let's dive in. So first, communal ontology and the Orthodox Church. So imagine a world where everyone is connected, not just through social media, but through their very existence. So in Orthodox Christian theology, this is the idea of communal ontology. This radical concept posits that the being of beings is to be found in the other, in communion with the other. It opposes the notion of self-relation as the source of all being is the communion between the persons of the Holy Trinity. So now let's try to picture a set of voluntary actions in a free market. We have people engaging in trade, exchange, and cooperation. Through these interactions, individuals experience the fullness of self-emptying, echoing the foundations of Orthodox theology. So, to better understand how this self-reflective behavior exists in Orthodox theology and this need for self-emptying, we're going to be looking at the deep self and economic theory. So to better understand the deep self, think of an iceberg. The visual tip represents the parts of ourselves that we are aware of, while the submerged portion represents the hidden processes and policies, rules that shape and govern our behavior. So we have economists like Minsky and Hayek and Adam Smith. They all explored this deep self and its relations to the free market. So as Daniel B. Klein, from the last book I was talking about, in Knowledge and Coordination, states, it is impossible to have a complete description or model that includes the describer creating a contradiction in terms. This idea challenges us to accept that the deep self can never be fully known, even in the context of a free market, because as you reflect onto yourself, you go into this infinite regression, which is what Minsky was talking about. Because there's so many processes that are happening in the market and in your life, in your social circle, in your network, so on and so forth. There are pieces of you that are entrenched in other people. And so you cannot know those pieces of you because they are entrenched in another person. So without that relationality, you cannot know. And then you have the Lumanian perspective where we have the observer. I can only observe outside of myself because the moment I observe all of the things that exist in my system, I can't look inward because I can't see my own eye. There's still missing information that's only reflected in the alter egos that exist. So another key point here is cooperation. So if we're visualizing this world where every good deed and every act of kindness and every effort improves the lives of others is some part of a larger plan. So if we read Adam Smith in the Theory of Moral Sentiments, when we act according to our moral faculties, which he labeled as like sympathy, he had 4 of them, we can get into that later, we necessarily pursue the most effective means for promoting happiness. Consequently, we may be said to cooperate with God and advance this plan of providence, contributing to a grander and interconnected purpose. And this could be labeled with, or could be put under with St. Maximus the Confessor in his work on the Logos and Logoi, and how this interconnection, these archetypes that exist that have this providence and all of this cooperation leads to this fullness of what it is to be a human. So we'll keep going. So if we're talking about human individuality and judgment in this context, which usually gets brought up, imagine a hall of mirrors where each reflection represents a different aspect of ourselves. So Daniel Klein discusses how the word I carries 2 seemingly opposite meanings, especially if you take it from Smith's work. One of precise individuality and the other of like this extensive generalization. We put ourselves in each other's shoes, relate to apparent situations, and judge one another's actions. This interconnectedness and interpenetration of things like empathy are crucial components of the human experience and the functioning of a free market. So I want to continue with some statements from two wonderful saints, but I want you to picture a weighing scale against wealth versus spiritual virtue. St. Ambrose and St. John Cassian, two prominent saints in the Orthodox Church, both touched upon the topic of wealth and virtue. St. Ambrose emphasized the importance of using riches for the common good. And so I'm going to give you the quote. And if you're not familiar, St. Ambrose was from 333 to 397, was a prolific writer, most notably in 374 to 397. He was a bishop of Milan. He's considered one of the main teachers of St. Augustine. He defended the Holy Spirit, and he went through a lot of issues. But the exposition that I'm going to read is from the Gospel of Luke, an exposition of the Gospel of Luke by St. Ambrose. Although there are many charms of delights and riches, yet there are more incentives to practice virtues. Although virtue does not require assistance, and the contribution of the poor person is more commended than the generosity of the rich, but the authority of the heavenly saying, Jesus condemns not those who have riches, but those who do not know how to use them. The pauper is more praiseworthy who gives with eager compassion, and is not restrained by the bolts of looming scarcity. He thinks that he who has enough for nature does not lack. So the rich person is more guilty who does not give thanks to God for what he has received, but vainly hides wealth given for the common use and conceals it in buried treasure. Then the offense consists not in the wealth, but in the attitude. And so that should open up this whole understanding and whole constitution that people have against like the greedy, the wealthy, and stuff like that. Like those aren't necessarily together. Those can be exclusive to one another, though they're not always mutually exclusive. So now we're going to look into St. John Cassian, who warned against losing one's self-improvement through the distractions of material wealth. And again, if you just take this from what it says, this is from Conference 2413 of St. John Cassian. Indeed, a person who loses by daily distractions of mind and of lack of self-control what he appears to gain by the conversion of others puts his profit into a bag with holes. And so that is while they fancy that they can make larger profits by the instructions of others, they're actually deprived of their own improvement. For there are who make themselves out as rich through processing nothing, and there are those who have humbled themselves amid great riches. So again, we have this statement where it's not that someone is rich or someone has stuff. It's that those teachings remind us that the pursuit of wealth should be balanced with the pursuit of virtues and the betterment of humanity, which is the key point that Adam Smith is trying to make when you go from the moral sentiment into The Wealth of Nations. That you have to have a moral system, a set of pursuing virtues, and the understanding of betterment of humanity. And that betterment of humanity is that self-emptying to the other. So the last thing I'm really going to bring up is this idea of mutuality, liberty, and the self in Orthodox theology and capitalism. So I want you to imagine a bustling marketplace where people trade goods and services freely without interference. In this vibrant setting, individuals not only pursue their own goals, but also contribute to the greater good. This idea of mutuality, as described by Daniel Klein in Knowledge and Coordination, demonstrates how voluntary exchange can lead to a mutual beneficial and improving the social system or social circumstances of those around. So if you think of this as a beautiful dancer where each dancer moves in harmony with the other, creating this breathtaking spectacle, right? This beautiful set of patterns. This is the concept that is similar to mutuality, where people engage in these voluntary exchanges, respecting each other's rights and properties. Contrary to the argument that liberty is self-centered, Klein asserts that liberty implies not only security, freedom, and ownership, but also those opposites, that we have a duty to respect ownership by others. We have a duty to respect freedom of others, and we have a duty to help secure the other. So if I have what I have, then I have that to self-empty out. In other words, liberty creates a delicate balance between individual autonomy and communal responsibility. Now, if we try to picture an intricate web of relationships where each person's actions have ripple effects that touch countless others, this idea of living in a world of mutuality aligns with the Orthodox theology's emphasis on self-emptying and communion with the other. As we engage in these mutual relationships, we pour ourselves into the other, experiencing an interpenetration that leads to empathy and sympathy. This process connects back to the work that I was talking about on the last episode of Edith Stein and Edmund Husserl, who explored these roles of empathy in human relationships and the formation of the self. Another way to think about this, if you consider a droplet of water joining a vast ocean, merging and mingling with countless other droplets, this symbolizes the interpenetration of the self and the other in Orthodox theology. By taking on the other as part of ourselves, we expand our own identity to be included, fostering a deeper understanding and empathy that enriches both our lives and the lives of others. This capacity for empathy and sympathy is key to the harmonious functioning of a free market, as it allows us to enter into a beneficial exchange while respecting the rights and the needs of the other participants, of the other. So in a grand dance of a free market, we can see how the principles of Orthodox theology are reflected in the actions of individuals, the self-emptying and communion with others as exemplified through this mutuality and interpenetration, create a rich tapestry of relationships that contribute to the flourishing of society. By embracing the values of empathy, sympathy, and mutual respect, we can create a marketplace that not only advances individual interests, but also promotes the common good and embodies the spirit of Orthodox theology. So throughout this exploration of Orthodox theology and capitalism, we've delved into the principles of communal ontology and their connections to the voluntary actions of a free market. We've used intuition pumps to explore the deep self, cooperation with God, human individuality, and the teachings of St. Ambrose and St. John Cassian on wealth and virtue. We've expanded upon the concept of mutuality and its role in liberty and promoting social good, while addressing the importance of empathy and interpenetration in understanding the other and ourselves. Because again, we can't reflect on ourselves. We have to reflect ourselves through the other. So the intersection of these seemingly disparate fields demonstrates the fascinating way in which Orthodox theology can inform our understanding of capitalism and its potential to embody the values of self-emptying and communion. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. I'm the Economancer, and thank you.